Look at yourself. How are you spending your time? Do you feel like you're activated? Do you feel like you're at the top of Maslow's hierarchy? Are you self-actualized? Are you living your best life?
You're listening to Good is in the Details. I'm Gwendolyn Dolske.
And I'm Rudy Salo.
And this is the podcast where we learn what we didn't know in the spirit of Socrates, all with the aim of a more knowledgeable life, a happy life. Our guest today, Rudy, I am going to yield to you. I loved this guest, but I know that this is somebody that you've worked with podcasting and transportation.
This is a good friend. This is somebody who I and everybody in the transportation world knows. His name is Paul Comfort. He such a great name, and we get into that. He is the embodiment of the crossroads of transportation and entertainment, which is my passion, and that's what I want to dedicate the rest of my legal career to. He's got one of the best YouTube channels focusing on transportation, where he goes throughout a whole bunch of cities. He learns about the back channels of how the public transit works there, and then he goes to events and he mixes some food. He's like the Anthony Bourdain of transportation. A long-time person, one of the big transit agencies in the country, but he's also a philosopher. He's somebody that wants to give back and take the lessons that he has learned throughout his career. He put out this phenomenal book that I had honored to submit and have an essay in there called Finding Your X Factor. Well, what does that mean, Rudy? As he says, happiness is really like trying to figure out, it's like an X, like learn what you're good at and what you're interested in. Try to marry that with a career, a critical thinking of you, what is important to you and what you are good at. And if you find that sweet spot, you're in the middle of that X, you will not only find happiness, you will find success job-wise, success career-wise, success life-wise. That to me is so important in this age of AI, that we all critically think about our careers, what we're into, what makes us happy, because that's what we all need to be doubling down on. And that's why having Paul on here, being part of that book, that's a major focus of this episode. But we also do some critical thinking about the importance of public transit and how important it is to have both for your job, but not just your job, but like your neighbor who might be in a wheelchair. Why should I care about how they get to their job or to their hospital? Well, because it's important. That's the kind of society that we live in. This is a great episode. I'm very excited. We talk about career stuff. We talk about transportation, and it's all based in critical thinking.
Yes. Paul's book, X Factor, I absolutely loved it. I even said he's a bit of a Socrates, the way in which he wants for people to shut out the noise and really be attuned to what their mind or their character is going for. It's really great advice. I think that's so cool that you have an essay in there. And then transportation, which if somebody is wondering, okay, where does philosophy and critical thinking skills come in there? Transportation, it governs the way in which we interact and what is possible for us to get out of our lives. We also have to tackle assumptions about transportation, what we can and cannot do, because everything the way it is right now is a result of decisions. It's not the way it has to be, it's the result of decisions. And once you recognize that, then you're able to introduce new elements or new possibilities. And that's all what critical thinking is about. And transportation is really the expression of a handful of people's vision of how people are to exist. This is his passion. It's also your passion. And we connect this idea of the X factor, where this is the expression of him being attuned to what he really enjoyed. So the principle of being attuned into what you enjoy, it doesn't have to go into the direction of, transportation or law or philosophy, but we enjoy speaking to people who radiate that happiness because it's infectious. And it's really just paying attention to how it is that you light up. What is it that you can't put down? What is it that you can talk about so much? The best name in the business, Paul Comfort. So comforting, so lovely. We need to put this in the title. No, I don't know. Okay, all right. Anyway, was that okay, Rudy?
It's great.
All right,
excellent.
Let's get some comfort with our X factor in transportation. All right, that's too cheesy. With Paul. Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet
Rudy's
you.
told me a lot about you. Rudy, Chris is the one that edits it, your buddy, so you know who it is. Chris O'Keefe.
Very
Anyway,
good.
great
So
to meet you, Gwen.
Gwen's a friend of Chris, too. Gwen
good.
knows Chris as well.
Yeah. So I've listened to your show, Gwen. It's great to actually meet you in person. I'm getting the same vibes that people get when they meet me. You know, it's nice to meet somebody I've only heard their voice.
I am thrilled. I was looking over your book and I wasn't sure because, you're connected through Rudy. So I thought, are we talking about transportation? And then I'm looking at the book and Paul, you are a Socrates. Do you know that? When I was reading your book, all of the stuff that we talk about, or when I begin a semester, I always begin with Socrates, just these lessons about character development and understanding your mind and blocking out the noise. And then the byproduct can be like all of the money and all of the other things. But we chase, maybe because of social media, we chase the flashy or what looks like success and swap that out for all the internal work that got the person there in the first place. So books like yours that really talk about harnessing that power of paying attention to what lights your soul on fire. That was one of the things that you wrote in there. I absolutely, you are a Socrates, Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, my dad was a Greek scholar, actually.
Yes.
He had his PhD in Greek. Yeah. And so maybe some of that stuff filtered down to me.
So wait a minute, Paul, really quick. I play a role here. I play the dumb one. Gwen, you told Paul he is a Socrates. Paul, you seem to understand that. Explain what that means.
You can do it, Gwen. Yeah.
You mean you want me to talk a little philosophy? Okay, well, no, I'll do the BuzzFeed version. I'm caffeinated, so I can sound like an auctioneer as I do it. Really, I mean, the foundation of Western thought, there were people who came before Socrates who are wildly important, but Socrates seems to be the marker because of his student Plato. But at any rate, one of the things that we learn from Socrates is the humility that comes with learning something new. And he was going up against the Athenian culture that was trying to pressure fame and money above character development. He was talking to the youth. He was asking people, hey, what is it that you think that you know? And he thought that this was also a moral issue. So for the ancient Greeks, and for Socrates in particular, the idea of being curious, development of the mind and of the talent is not just a good idea for a happy life, but it is a moral idea, because when you act like you know everything, you are also being blasphemous because you're putting yourself at the level of the divine. What I'm saying with Paul's book is that he's giving a path that's very Socratic. This is what I think is really lovely about your book as well, is the permission to pursue that thing that you can't put down and you're in love with. And that is a very difficult thing to teach because we are given a script of life, a checklist. And so it's like there's a bunch of professions that exist right now. And if all of the youth is only trying to fit into the box of what exists, we don't have anybody tapping into a unique talent to discover something new. And we don't allow people to trust that there is something new. I mean, even Rudy, like, I'm infinitely grateful to you. I'm sorry, I'm going to be cheesy right now, because when I was reading Paul's book, I was thinking about how I grew up just so nerdy and in love with books, and there is no profession for that. And then studying philosophy, and everyone's like, what are you going to do with that? And all I knew is I wanted to do it more. Why I say I'm infinitely grateful to Rudy is because of this podcast. I get to take that to another medium, and it didn't really exist. There aren't women philosophy podcasters out there. And as a result of us doing this show, there have been other women in academia or otherwise who have been our guests that then go on to do their own show. So we have actually more women podcasters. Rudy and I are having so much fun that other people have said, hey, maybe I can do that too. If I were to just stick to the script and what's available, which is men are primarily in philosophy and there are no women philosophy podcasters out there, this wouldn't exist. And I also had the support of Rudy, who's brilliant and wonderful, to come on board. Like, all of those things had to exist.
Oh, we got to hire her to introduce us at every single conference from now. What do you think? I mean,
I'm
seriously,
gonna be quiet now.
that was amazing. Paul, what say you?
Yeah, I love that, Gwen. What you said, it was inspiring to me. Thank you. I think what she's talking about is the book contains aphorisms, truths, statements which you can kind of hang your hat on. We're in an age today of the anti-truth age, where there are no absolutes, right? It's whatever makes you feel good or whatever. We spend time doom scrolling our phones or watching television shows and news shows that will affirm affirm our current beliefs and keep us in the lane we're in and keep us divided as a society, I think. What the book aims to do is what Gwen just talked about, how to find the perfect intersection, or not the perfect, but close to as good as you can get, good as in the details, of your life, where your interests and abilities intersect. That's your X factor. Rudy, you and I both have a background in music. Gwen, I played keys, I still play keys, and sing. When I was in college, I formed a band, Sons of Thunder. We made a record, we toured, we did mostly original songs, and I got just about to the end of college, and we were all super passionate, like you always are when you're young, right? Music is everything. We want to go full time. We think we're good enough. I remember the recording guy over at Studio House North in DC telling me, the technician saying, I asked him, how good do you think we are? He said, yeah, you're good, but you're not great. And that was probably about the right truth. I wanted the truth. We weren't good enough. We didn't have a lane to succeed. I'm engaged. My rhythm guitarist gets married. We're all like 22, 21, 22, end of college. I realize I got to make a decision here. Are we doing this or not? Because if we're going to get married, I got to get a house. I got to get a real job to support my family. Want to have kids and all that stuff. And so I just made a decision. We're not good enough. I have the interests, but I do not have the abilities that are required in this particularly very competitive field, right? You go to Nashville, you go down this Broadway, and every bar has a different musician that should be up on a stage somewhere in front of 10,000 people because they're that good, but they're not, because it's a lot of factors involved in making it big in music. So I made really the first adult decision of my life, which is I'm not going to follow my passion only. I have to also cross-reference that with what I'm good at. So the book goes through a series of stories of my life and the lives of 8 other, including you, Rudy, 8 other people who have reached the peak of their career, and shows how can I integrate what I love and what I'm passionate about into what I do for a living. You don't have to blow up your life. You only have to follow the trail and lean into what you are passionate about. And eventually it might pop for you like it did for me 8 years ago. I retired as CEO of the MTA in Baltimore, the 11th largest transit system in America, billion-dollar budget, 5,000 employees. It was great. It was a pinnacle of my career. But when I finished after 30 years working, I was able to find a job where I could do this full time, what I love, which is communicate, passionate. I still play piano and do all kinds of fun stuff. That is what my passion is. The book is about how to uncover the map that's already inside of you from youth, I believe, no matter what phase of life you're in, whether you're a young person like I was, breaking up the band, deciding what I was going to do, or you're mid-career in your 40s and you're having kind of a panic attack, a midlife crisis, saying, what the hell? I'm 20 years in. This isn't where I wanted to be. Or you're at the end of your career like I was, your active career, and you're like, well, what now? There's lessons for you at each phase of your life on how to really find the purpose and passion in your life and still get paid for it, maybe.
The section where you said like stuck in a job, and it made me think about all of the jobs that I had from my youth. While none of those were a career for summer money or something like that, and I didn't particularly enjoy sometimes that work, but I learned so much that I use now. That has nothing to do with my career now, but I learned how to engage with people. And Rudy talks about his work at McDonald's and how he credits that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to tell your story for you, Rudy, but with your success now. And I wish that more younger people now, who I do love, so I'm not pooping on Gen Z, but there is this antagonism with the corporations, which is not totally unjustified, but this lack of understanding about what the discipline and how much you can learn, even from the job that's not going to be your career and the job that you might not necessarily like, because one of the lessons is how you show up. There is a way to figure it out, and the power that you can have to make somebody else's day. Like if you're a barista and you're like, I'm not going to do this forever. This is just summer work. But when somebody comes in to get the coffee, you might be the best part of their morning and you don't even realize that. And when you start to tap into the power of the way in which you show up for work, that can also inform your spirit, your soul, of what you're called to do.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And just to go back to the McDonald's analogy, I don't even think I realized what I was doing or how important that was and the lessons that I took from it until one day, one of the homeless customers that was there brought me a gift. He brought me like this really nice carpet just to say, thank you for treating me like a human being. I want to give you something. And you've always been so nice to me. And it hit me then as a 16-year-old kid. Like, it's so important to treat everybody with dignity. He came in, he didn't ask for a free coffee every day. He paid for his coffee. I don't care how he got the money or anything. Like, he was a customer. You treat a customer, you treat somebody the same way that you treat anybody, so long as they're, properly paying for a service or there with dignity. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I do believe that taught me how to be very client focused in my legal job, as well as people focused. Everyone's got a story, but you got to treat everybody with dignity. And McDonald's was all about that. Like, no joke. I think they still are to this day. I mean, I hope so. Their training was wonderful.
Yeah. I worked at McDonald's. That was like my first job when I was 16. That's funny, Rudy. We got that in common.
Oh,
let's
let's
use these analogies and stories to kind of focus in on this principle, right? Is that you can uncover things even as a young person in your life. I think we're hardwired. We're hardwired with a bent. Like, when I look back, I remember, Rudy, when I was 10 years old, on my 10th birthday, June 10th, having a cassette recorder in my bedroom and taping myself as my voice was high. My name is and I had that tape for a long time. I was practicing being on the radio at 10 years old, being a DJ. And then as soon as I could, when I was 16, I became a DJ, right, at a local radio station. And I worked at that station for 16 years, doing, weekend DJ, started my own show, Comfort's Corner, in the front window of Callahan's Gas and Appliance in downtown Centerville, where I interview people. It's what I'm doing today, basically, on a podcasting. Podcasting is talk radio, right? So my show is Transit Unplugged. You go back and you trace what your interests are, right? When I got into college, I ran for student government president in one of my college. When I got into University of Maryland, I got into the radio station, became the news director, and became a DJ. And my favorite time of the week was Monday nights from 5 to 7 p.m. because that was my shift on the air. And I could look behind me in the window into the Student Union Center, and I could see how the students reacted when I dropped the record player on U2's Where the Streets Have No Name for the first time they heard that at Joshua Tree. I could see them looking at the window when I was talking, and just the immediate connection that I had with them, which is what I love, is the connection with people. That's why when I speak now, conferences all over the world, as a keynote, I go through the front line and I shake everybody's hand before I speak. I want to connect with them. I want to feel that connection. So then when I'm looking at them from the front and talking, we already have established this kind of psychic connection. All that was a thread leading through my life, which led me to where I'm at now, which is operating in my X factor. This is the perfect job. I wake up every day enthused because I'm doing what I love. And I'm good at it because I know transportation like the back of my hand. I ran transit systems, small, medium, and large, studied it. I teach it now at Villanova. It is the perfect intersection of my interests and abilities. And that's what the book kind of helps you do. We have a website, findyourxfactor.ai, where you can start the journey yourself. You go there, you take the test, it's free. It gives you feedback. If this interests you, what Gwen and Rudy and I are talking about, and we'll say it more later, but my advice to you is stop and pause everything you're doing when you have the right moment to do so, and spend an hour in your own head. I know you haven't been in there for a while probably, but think it through. What are my interests? Let me uncover what I've always leaned into in my jobs, what I've always loved, what has made me feel happy and excited. And then what does other people other than my mom tell me I'm good at, right? Because your mom thinks you're good at everything. You got to find what you're recognized for, right? In 2016, I won the award from the 50 state departments of transportation as the #1 guy in transportation in America. So I was recognized by all my peers as a top dude in that field. I'm good at that, and I love this, and how can I get them closer together? How can I get them to intersect? And if not, like I've got a chapter in my book, like you were talking about, Gwen, it's called When You Hate Your Job. It's about the job I hated. I hated it for if I could, I would use curse words here, but I won't. 5 years, let's just say. And it was miserable.
And use curse words. If you really hate it, you can let it all out, Paul. This is psychology therapy.
That's right. Well, I did it then. I'd call my wife and scream on the phone and say, I hate my job. I can't believe I'm working here. I hate it. But I was locked in by the money. I felt like, I can't quit and I always said I would never let that happen to me. And I did. But like you said, Gwen, I learned a lot from it. And you know what? That job, I hated it so much that it made me learn how to eat steel wool for breakfast. And it's exactly what I needed to get into the head of the MTA, which was the governor asked me to come in there and blow the place up and start over again, metaphorically speaking. And I needed to go in, like I told all the staff at my first staff meeting, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a difference. I was a change agent. And there's a chapter in the book on that, change agent or cheerleader. So I had the ticking time bomb on my back, the 2-year ticking time bomb when you're a change agent. That's what I believe you have. And so you better make all the changes you can. You better figure out how to institutionalize and use, the law of thermodynamics that says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so you have to gauge your initial thrust to minimize the blowback and all that so that you can have these changes last longer. all that to say, this is what the book helps guide you to do. And you don't necessarily need the book. It's a nice tool, though. But you can start it yourself just by stopping and thinking, turning everything off.
Oh, really quick to stay on the thread of your youth, your path,
Yeah.
which is great. Thank you for telling the story. It's an awesome story. I love that it's so relatable. That's why we're pals. Today is World Transit Day.
That's right.
Great day for transit geeks like us. You're 22. You quit the band.
Yeah.
Why transportation? What happened? Was there something in your youth? Was there an interest in your youth, or did you stumble upon it? Tell me your transportation interest story. Tell us.
Yeah.
Why transportation?
I was interested in helping people. My dad was a minister. I was raised, active in our church. He and my mom set for me a great example of a life of service, going at night, visiting people in the hospital, all the stuff you do when you're a pastor of a local church. So I wanted to do it, but I didn't feel like my calling was to go into, quote, ministry, to be active in the church. I felt like, to be honest with you, the place where I could help the most people, and I know it sounds like a funny misnomer, but was in government, local government. I'm from the government. I'm here to help you, right? We always joke about that. But local government is where the rubber hits the road, literally, right? It's where the parks and the schools and the sheriff's department and planning and zoning and Department of Aging and all that stuff happens. And so I ran for county commissioner. I got super active in politics, and I ran for Democratic Central Committee and county commissioner in my home county when I was 21, when I was a junior in college. So I won for Central Committee, but I lost for commissioner. I think people thought, Paul's a nice guy, but, he's 21. And they were probably right, But I wanted to be in government. And so there's a chapter in my book called I Met a Guy, and this is the first story. It's the story of my career. Every step of my career is I met a different guy. Here I met Irving Pinder, who was the head of the Office on Aging. He ran for office too, the same time I did. He lost too, just like I did. But he had this job. We met, we became friends, and he said to me, Paul, you're a great young man. I think you've got a bright future ahead of you. I got 2 jobs open in the Department of Aging. One is in charge of the senior centers, and one is I have enough vans now where I need somebody to manage it. We can't just run it as an also ran. We have 15 vans. We're taking people to our 3 senior centers. We've got doctor's trips. I only got a 1-year grant to fund this position, but would you be interested in it? It's $14,876. So August 10th, 1987, I started that job. I asked him, he offered me those 2 jobs. And he said, which one do you want? And I was like, I don't know, Irving. Which one do you think I should take? He said, well, you can make your mark in the transportation. That's a brand new thing, So here I am, 38 years later, still working in this industry with a short 6-year run as a county manager in 2 county governments. But that's the story. I followed my interest in helping people, and it led me to local government, which led me to transportation. And now I believe it's probably, it's one of the 2 or 3 top ways in local government, maybe the health department, maybe schools, and then maybe transportation are 3 kind of key local government things where you really help people.
Couldn't agree more. Sticking on the transportation thread and what you just said, brilliant. Health, of course, the government should play a part in taking care of people's health, local hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. Education, obviously we have a system of free education here. Transportation, I don't think people think about it enough, right? Because they think, well, there's my road, there's my sidewalk, I'm going to drive on that road. A lot of people don't appreciate exactly what your first job was about, helping those seniors get to where they needed to go. Mobility is, I think, taken for granted, right? We all think, well, I have 2 legs, or I can drive a car. Oh, I only care about me. Nobody thinks about all those other folks that maybe can't drive a car because of a condition, or maybe, lost their driver's license or something along those lines. And I'm always trying to preach the gospel of transportation options. It's strange that I do think that where the shift is in public transportation and the work that you're doing is why I'm such a believer in you, is if we maximize the transportation options available to everybody, society becomes better. What could we be doing better to get that message across, Paul? I mean, is it people like you and me and podcasts like this that talk about the connection of transportation truly being the essence of freedom, which is very important in the United States and our individual rights? Or do we need to do something better or different? The philosophical approach of transportation.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm a transit evangelist. That's what I have on my, my bio. And so my goal is to do a little bit of that. The message for the average person, I think you broke it down, is very simple. Just think about paratransit, which I've spent a lot of my career doing. I ran Washington, D.C.'s paratransit system for 5 years, helping 10,000 elderly and people with disabilities every day get to where they need to go. Now, think about if we didn't have that service, where would they be? Most likely, they'd be in a nursing home at a cost of what now? I don't know what it is anymore, but it's very expensive, probably 100,000 a year, I don't know, on the public dole. Whereas we leave them with independence. And so, their daughter doesn't have to take off work to take mom to the doctor because she can have a van come with a caring person who's been trained to handle her because she's, got a mobility problem with her gait or whatever. Just that message alone is powerful from an economic standpoint. And like UITP, the Union of Transportation, the Global Transportation Union, is what put out this public transport day. They call it public transport in Europe, by the way. We call it transit here. They don't call it that over there. It's public transport, not even public transportation. So yes, I think the message has to be basically, when you get somebody's ear, you got to take a moment to convince them of the economic value, the social value. You look at Tucson, one of the cities I was most impressed with. I have a TV show too, Transit Unplugged TV, as you know, Rudy. It's Anthony Bourdain meets public transit. Food, fun, culture in a city every month. And then we show you, hey, but guess what? Behind the scenes, what's tying all that together? The food, fun, and culture is the public transport system, if we're in Europe, or the public transit system, we're here. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to pull back the curtain and let you look in the operations control center, look in the maintenance garage, see how they charge up their vehicles on those electric chargers. And then we're going to show you the connection points and how you can ride that in a fun way. I think, we just had 1 million viewers on our last episode. So I think people it's fun enough to keep their attention for half an hour. You look at a city like Tucson that surprised me, billions of dollars of transit-oriented development along the route of their light rail line. The economic value to a city, the moral value of taking care of people who can't take care of themselves more. They've done surveys recently, and my friend Mark Ash, who does a lot of this work, was talking about these. I think, Rudy, at the thing you and I were at together, remember we were at that CTA Expo? He and I did a joint presentation there, and the studies have shown, and I just talked to the president of Userve this morning, which is like an Uber-style company for elderly and disabled. He was reminding me of this. Surveys show people are willing to subsidize and pay taxes for two parts of transportation: to get people to jobs and to help the elderly and people with disabilities. That's the two things people feel like, yeah, I can get behind it with my tax dollars. So that's the message. The message is, that's our value wedge. We lead with that as our message.
Great. So you and I are transit geeks, transit lovers, transit evangelists. Gwen, you're brilliant. You're a great person. Thank you. Since you called me brilliant, I'll call you brilliant. You're a wonderful thing. I'm going to venture a guess. Before you and I got to know each other, you probably didn't think about transportation as much as Paul and I do. Let's put you as this is going to be very offensive, the average American. What has changed since you've gotten to know me and you've read Paul's book and you've been learning more and reading these books about transportation in the last 7 years? What has worked with you to rethink the importance of transportation as an American? What has worked for you?
Well, I did live in Belgium for a little bit, and that was all public transportation.
Oh, yeah.
I was in a walking city, and when I moved back to California, the annoyance that I had with all of the struggles with owning a car, checking the tires, oh, then there's the DMV, the registration. Oh man, there's construction. I have a flat tire. And I started to think about the American attitude that we have. Well, I shouldn't say American. I'm going to say Southern Californian, because I think California is unique when it comes to the the attitude. The success of the industry of automobiles, which I think is the reason why we don't have a lot of public transit, is selling the idea of freedom with the car. Once you have lived where you're using public transportation, you realize that freedom argument just isn't there. I lived it in Belgium and in Southern California. In talking with you, Rudy, and understanding your passion and the way in which you've linked it with growing up and cultural attitudes, you have offered me the opportunity to think about it more deeply. And now I do. Paul, you sent a link, I think it was about the impact of people who have a medical issue or they're senior. How are they going to get to work? Or what if somebody loses their job? They need to find other work, but it's at a distance. And what do they do about their mortgage? If we had better transportation, that fear of how am I going to pay the mortgage wouldn't have as much weight, because to get to the next county over or 2 counties over to spread your job search would be easy because you'd have the transportation. I will say one other thing, and this is going to be silly because this is not technical at all. Anybody who has a child, anybody who has a grandchild, niece or nephew, and I mean, I'm talking young, when you go outside for the walk, the excitement that they have to skip around and run, and then you forget, oh yeah, we don't need the car. We can just walk somewhere. Or if they're going to hop on a plane with you, the excitement, like us adults, we're like, oh, the airport, I got to go through all this. But the kids are like, woohoo, we sit there looking out the window, waving at everybody. Same thing with trains, same things with buses, which tells me that childlike joy of hopping on any of these public transits, we've let die in us as adults. And we've just gotten into the habit of getting on a freeway and being in our own boxes. If you need to remind yourself of how interesting and remarkable and fascinating it is, the possibilities of these giant mechanisms to move us all together, just take your kid out with you and see that wonder that they have about getting on a bus or getting on a train.
I could listen to you all day, Gwen.
Right?
Rudy, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Wait, oh.
Yeah. It was, I'm telling you, this is the stuff. And this is so important. And this is why I want to get this message out there. Paul, tell us more about you're teaching these students. You're teaching Gen Xers or whatever it is. I don't even, maybe you're even teaching Generation A these days. What's the feeling out there of young people in transportation?
They're fascinated by the structure and organizations of transit, how it's funded, how it operates, the impact it has, how many more people it impacts in many ways than even roads, how safe it is, all that stuff. I think for these students who are career-minded students who are going to become transportation engineers, I'm hoping to influence them to have a positive view toward transit, to not be highway-only geeks, but to think about transit as a potential career for them. But also, we need the highways. Buses run on highways. Cars run on roads. There's nothing wrong with either of them. We need them all. The idea just is that transit can be another option. My idea on World Transit Day is, yeah, I get it. I live in the suburbs. I don't really have good transportation where I live, public transportation. I couldn't ride it if I wanted to. There's none in front of my house. Nothing. I'd have to drive 20 miles to get to where a bus route is. I'm out in the country. I'm actually rural, not even suburban. So I get that. But when I go into the city, I'm going to ride Metro to get into Washington, D.C., right? I'm going to go to the Metro station. I'm going to ride in. There's a lot of reasons why you want to do it. I was interviewed on another podcast last week, and they said, what was your very first transit trip? And I thought about it. I said, it was going to see the monuments and the museums in Washington, D.C., riding the Metro, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority system. WMATA, or as I used to call it when I worked there, we meet and talk a lot. That's what it stood for. Like a lot of government does, right?
Gwen, actually, Paul, teaches engineering ethics as well, not just in transportation or in transit. And I'm kind of curious about this kind of crossroads. You guys are both teaching engineers, and these are people, okay, engineers, there are certain types of people, they have a certain type of mind,
That's right.
they want to build stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Is it easier, and I'm asking the both of you, is it easier to talk to people that have that engineering mind about how important transportation and structure and logistics is? Is it the individual, Gwen and Paul, or is it something that this is a message that can be, what you're teaching about people, the ethics of engineering, the importance of it? Is that something that can be spread out? Do we need to enlist the engineers to spread that message with us? I'm curious, Gwen, what are your thoughts?
I would love if there were more engineers or people with engineering backgrounds who were in public service, like in politics, because there are so many things where they have the knowledge of how everything works and what is possible. And engineers, they're good people. They just want to create. There's no desire to harm. They are fascinated by what is possible or what could be faster. They look at the world as a canvas, and then they're going to just start building, and they're so valuable. Like I said, we deaden that childlike wonder as we get older, and we've been sold on this idea, especially in California, that public transit is for the other. I'm going to have my own box. With engineering ethics, I think it's one of the things to keep in mind that even though engineering is very objective, right? Either something works or it doesn't. There's the math and then there's the materials. We like to think of it as there's no subjectivity involved, but that's not entirely true because there are engineers around the world and not everything looks the same around the world, which means that engineers are designing things that have a point of view and have particular funding, particularly interests. And so what we see with our transportation is a reflection of interest. I guess, I don't know where I was going to land with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know where you're going to land. And Paul, maybe you could speak to this too. So, Paul, you're going around the world on your great TV show, Transit Unplugged, and you're talking with the people that are running transit systems, correct?
Yes.
Paul, are you mostly talking to engineers, or are you seeing as a result of you know what you're doing? You're doing what I want to do for the rest of my life. You want to know what that is, Paul? The crossroads of entertainment and transportation.
Boom, baby.
I swear, I have pledged allegiance to figuring that out because I feel like you can get people to and from entertainment by using more transportation option. What are they going to have? A better experience. But Paul, when you're out there and you're talking to these folks that work in these agencies, is it just different people that care about what Paul and I care about? And if that's the case, is there a way to make it more interesting by telling people, hey, let's bring in some entertainment here, like what Paul is doing, and tell people, here's an easier way to ingress and egress to your entertainment options by having more transportation options. That's what I think is a great message that will affect everybody. My question particularly, Paul, is when you're out there and you're talking to these people in these agencies, are you only talking to engineers?
No, I'm talking to usually the CEOs, the COOs, sometimes the head of engineering. We would go out on a project, a construction project. When I was at MTA, we had 145 capital projects going on the whole time I was there, from fixing rail at some intersection somewhere, to overhead lines, catenary wires on some of our light rail areas. So I talked to them all. And it's interesting. As a result of this job, Rudy, I think I have visited more public transit systems around the world than anyone else alive. Right now, I've done 400 podcasts, most of
For
them
sure you
in
have.
person, and 40 TV shows. And so I've got a good taste of what it's like around the world. It's done really super well in cities like Singapore, and I think Washington, D.C. does a really good job of it. Gwen mentioned this earlier, that where it's integrated into the fabric of the community, where it doesn't feel like it's just for the other people. It's for low income, for the elderly, for what we used to call transit dependent. But everyone sees, like New York City does. In New York City, Demetrius Critchlow, the CEO there, came up through the system. And I know a lot of guys that worked in the system there. In New York City, everybody rides transit. It's just how you get around. And it's not viewed as for other people. It's not on most people's radar, right? Less than 5% of Americans ride transit. Rudy and I were talking about doing a documentary about that and figuring out why. So the way to get it on their radar is to give them a taste of it. And a way to get a taste for most people is, for instance, a World Cup, right? We have 12 cities where the World Cup's going to come, FIFA World Cup this year. Most of those cities, it's in the news this week, people are going to have to ride transit to get to them. If you're in LA, you're going to have to ride the transit to get to the Olympic Games. If you're in a city that has a Super Bowl. So these big sporting events are where you give people a taste. And then when you do, you don't want it to be a bad taste. You want it to be a great experience for them. And so transit agencies have really ramped up for the World Cup. Unfortunately, some of them now feel like they need to be I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but you've read the headlines this week. It's going to be high charging in some cities to use public transit to get there. And I understand that from a macro perspective, from an economic perspective for a city. But I also want people to have a great experience when they get on the light rail to go to the stadium to see the game and to say, oh man, it was so nice. Last time I left a football game, it took me an hour to get out of the parking lot, before I got into all this traffic. But boom, I could get on the light rail and ride in for 20 minutes on a clean, comfortable vehicle and get off right in front of the stadium. And when I was done, get right back to my car and get it. That was a good experience and improved my life. And so that's what we hope, really, Rudy, for people to really get a better opinion of it. They need to try it, right? Like everything else in life, you have to try it. If you don't have a good experience, if you get on it, it's dirty, it's unclear where you're going, you can't tell the direction, you feel unsafe on the vehicle, you're not going to do it again. You go, I knew it. I think those of us in the transit industry really have an obligation to make sure that when we give people a chance to try transit the first time, it works. In other situations, so we're in Florida 3 years ago, filming an episode of our show down there. My wife and daughter are staying in a hotel, and I take the rental car, and they're going to hang out at the pool all day, and I go with Jaime, my videographer, and we go up the road for all day. I come back, and she says, Paul, I would have taken the bus. There's a bus stop right in front of the hotel. But I didn't know when it came. I didn't know where it went. I didn't know how much it cost. There was no information about anything anywhere. So, of course, I'm not just going to go out there and sit there and wonder. So, shame on us. Shame on us for not figuring that out. We should at least have a freaking QR code on the bus stop sign that somebody can click with their phone and figure out where the hell they're going.
Well, we just sent people to the moon. We can do this.
Yes.
Think of all of the excitement. Like, now that I'm understanding the trajectory and just how big of a deal that is, and what some people have even asked about, like, well, wait, why are we still sending people in? Why are we spending money on that? What's not understood is that all of the engineering and work that it takes to be able to accomplish that is not just for that. You use that technology in other ways. And I just saw, I think it was on Blue Sky, I think it was in Japan, solar panels of where a plane could land. I'm just thinking, how cool is that? So we have the technology, we have the brains. This is a choice. There is no reason why we can't have the coolest stuff and be excited and look at all of the people, or maybe listen to a podcast while or finish up a couple of emails. And it would be less. Like if I were to do a transit to work for a month, I'm guessing that would be less than my car payment. And then we could be a one-car household, and I would love that.
And you'd get massive amounts of stuff done. I mean, my very first article when I used to write for Forbes.com was called, let someone else do the driving, why delegating the driving can really change your life. And all those goals, you want to write that book, you want to learn that language, you want to write that screenplay. It can be done. Just let someone else do the driving. But what Paul said, here's a call to action. This is Paul, genius. You just identified something that's so simple. Because I always talk about public-private partnerships. Right? How can we get private industry more involved in public transit and in promoting it? It's as simple as having a little play card when you check into a hotel that has a QR code that says, hey, there's some buses around here. You could just scan it with your phone and this will take you to these routes. And oh yeah, look at our parking. Our parking's like $90 a day or $100 a day.
Right.
Here's this little card. It's just a tiny little partnership, a little thing where public transit agencies go to these hotels, hand these out and just say, hey, can you please hand these out to it's something that simple.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the call to action. I mean, the simple things, Paul, you're right. Telling people, making sure that they feel safe, telling them how to do something, and maybe even on that QR code, a video to one of your Transit Unplugged episodes where you're showing people the transit agency in that particular city. That's great. That's wonderful. That should be the call to action that people take after listening to the show.
You know who does that? The lady in Anaheim
does that?
Transit, close to you all. In Anaheim Transit, I've been down there, met with her, did a podcast with her. She has connections with all the hotels. The employees ride in, and they have information in the hotels for regular people who are staying at the hotel to use it. She does a great job.
So funny. I literally just there was a concert of one of my favorite bands. I've seen them like 25 times, Devo. I drove to the Anaheim Arctic station, parked my car, took the Amtrak down, took the Amtrak back up because my family was going to Disneyland. And you're right, the bus rapid transit system in Anaheim, it's crazy. Gwen, you'd never believe this because we've picked on Southern California a little tiny bit on this show, and Southern California deserves it. It's got kind of a sordid history of public transportation. Anaheim in Orange County is got to be one of the premier places where the crossroads of transportation and entertainment is. Where the train station is, you see where the Ducks play, and you can walk over to Angel Stadium, and there's these BRT buses that take you to and from Disneyland and California Adventure and downtown Disney. It's absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Paul, did you do a Transit Unplugged just on Anaheim?
Yeah, not a TV show, but a podcast. Yeah, an audio podcast.
Man, you got to come to Anaheim. I'd love to join you because I went to high school in Anaheim. So I went to an all-guy Catholic high school next to Disneyland. Gwen went to the all-girls school up at Fullerton. Okay. Anaheim is the marker. I do a lot in transportation funding, and I actually have been preaching to some of my other clients because they're obviously now interested in the crossroads of transportation and building things, making things easier. And I said, hey, have you taken a visit down to Anaheim? They're like, no, why? And I tell them about it. So I'm very happy that you brought that up.
We could go with Doran Barnes at Foothills Transit, which is, the commuter buses down there. He's a big Disney guy. He got me into Disney, Rudy, in like the club. I forget what there's a number,
333.
Yeah. So we got to
that's
go
a big
there
deal, Paul.
Yeah, he's part of that. So we got to have lunch at that great place. She took me there for a whole day. It was awesome. Maybe we could combine all that together. Maybe in next year, 2027. That'd be awesome.
I like it. What does the future look like for you, Paul, and your evangelism?
Okay. What I do, I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Customer Officer of Modaxo. Modaxo is the world's largest transportation technology company. In a week, I'll be going to Copenhagen, Denmark to join with 1,500 other of our leaders from across the world, from our parent company, Valeris and us, where we're going to be learning about leadership development, AI, all that stuff for a week. It's going to be awesome. I love working for this company because it allows me to do just what we're talking about. I'm the connector content creator for Modaxo. And so I engage with the C-suite of the transit systems across the world, bring them on our podcast, which is a weekly audio audio podcast. It's on YouTube and on every other platform. We're number one in the world in our industry. We're heard in 100 countries. That's every week. We just had our 400th episode, and you can get it on transitunplugged.com or wherever. We're going to continue that show. Then we also started right after the pandemic a TV show, because I watched a lot of Bourdain during the pandemic, and I said, I want to do this. I want to show people what they've been hearing on the podcast. And now it's turned into more of an on-ramp to public transportation for the average person. The podcast is for people who work in or around public transportation. It's mostly interviewing senior executives, mostly CEOs of transit systems. Then the monthly TV show is on YouTube, Transit Unplugged TV. We have 40 great episodes already in queue for you. The current episode is from St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. The next episode is, we've already filmed it in San Antonio, another amazing city that blew me away. The two big, fun, cool episodes that we did recently are Italy, rode the high-speed rail. We went between all the cities, from Florence to Rome to, Milan. And just last week, dude, woo, it's a great trip. I went to, I rode the Canyon Spirit excursion train from Denver to Moab, Utah, to Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and then up to Salt Lake City. 3-day train ride. Fantastic. And we show you how train travel can be done in a fantastic way. I rode on the media car with all the travel writers and bloggers and movie critics and all them, and we all had a ball together, and that show will be coming out June. We'll do Chicago later this year. We're going to have a lot of great shows. I think it'll be fun. Montreal, we just did. Then I do live events, do book signings. Find Your X Factor is coming out August 11th. It's kind of perfect when you think about the timing of it. I started my career on August 10th, 1987 in transportation. 40 years later, exactly to the day, the first day of the 40th year later, which is a generation in ancient philosophy and ancient texts. One generation later, I'm shifting my focus from not just transportation, but now to personal development, career development, etc. And so if people want me to come and talk and do a talk about the book at your organization or whatever, a half hour, I'm happy to do it, and I'll do it for free. You just buy some of the books. I'll come in and do a Zoom into your organization for a half hour and talk about how to find your X Factor. I just want to get the message out is the idea. I don't need to necessarily make a ton of more money. It's a calling card so you can get your message out. And this message, I think, is important for every industry, which is, what's the difference between Walmart and Kmart? They both started the same year, selling the same stuff, big box retail. One went on to become America's largest company, still is the largest employer in America with 2 million employees. The other went bankrupt. What was the difference? Leadership. Who was in charge? Sam Walton had a philosophy. He based his sales not just on trying to make a lot of money, but sell low to serve people and you'll sell more. He had that underlying philosophy, and it created great success. So I want, especially in our industry, but in all industries, I want the leaders to find that sweet spot where they are excited about their work every day and they go to work enthused and they're also good at it. And so they perform well, and that's going to create excellence. One of the stories I tell about all this is I remember walking in just a few years ago into a customer service center at a transit agency where, they answer the calls, and there's every major transit agency has a customer service division. And I walked in from behind where the CEO told me to walk in. And I'm not kidding. Every single computer screen was on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. They were not doing their work. They were not enthused about their work. They wanted to numb their mind or make other connections because they weren't engaged in what they were doing. Some people might do that job with great excellence and say, hey, I can really help people here. I want to do this. They're not going to have their computer screen on. I think it's a good test for yourself and for people at work is, what are you doing in your free time when your mind wanders? Are you numbing it with substances? Are you numbing your mind with, doom scrolling on your phone for hours and hours? Don't turn it off. Look at that thing when it says, how many hours did you spend on your phone on average? And you see it's 6.5, and you're like, holy mother of God, how did I spend? Because you're not fulfilled. You're not, unless, you might be using it for work. I do it for work a lot. So, but if you're just goofing off on your phone, your life is being drained away from you, man. I especially worry about kids. I have 6 kids and 10 grandkids. I'm so glad that my kids are having their kids not get into a phone yet. The oldest one is 10. Now, I don't want their mind to be numbed by that stuff at an early age. And there's lots of studies coming out now. I'm sure you guys have talked about it among yourselves about how that impacts their development. All that to say, look at yourself. How are you spending your time? Do you feel like you're activated? Do you feel like you're at the top of Maslow's hierarchy? Are you self-actualized? Are you living your best life? I understand that sometimes people have very tough situations. They have to break out. But I would say that you can start. And when you start, you'll find that it's easier to steer a moving car than it is one standing still. So my call to action is get started. You may not end up in the perfect place and be totally satisfied, but you can be more than you are now. because we have the ability to dig inside of ourselves and uncover a trail of what we are good at and what we are interested in, find the intersection, and then serve in that capacity. You don't always get paid for it. Like, I just got asked to do a whole new function at my current job that I'm not going to get paid for. But you know what? It's something I love. So I'm happy to do it. And I know that it will create space for me, right? Always work on improving yourself. And my dad taught me that. So I went to law school at night when I wanted to improve myself. I knew I didn't want to practice law, but I knew it would make me better at my job. So I read constantly now and trying to, listen to podcasts which will edify me, to improve me. That's why I love your podcast. Your podcast is a great way to shape your mind and shape your philosophy and how you think about things. And your voices are easy to listen to. And you've got a great cadence about it. And it's a really easy listen, your show is. So all that to say, to wrap it all up, that's what's coming for me. I'm going to keep doing more of that, and I'm going to lean more into my new phase, which is personal development.
Can I anoint Paul and tell him that he needs to add something to his title? He's not just the transit evangelist. I hereby say that he should put a slash there and say transit evangelist / philosopher. Is that okay? Can you do that? Because what he just laid out, he literally laid out a wonderful life philosophy that I truly think everyone at all ages should be following. Do I have your permission to do that?
Yes. And I was going to add one thing, because Paul, when you said it's like Anthony Bourdain, you've mentioned Anthony Bourdain, I think twice, and it was making me think about the niche that he carved out, because he enjoyed what he was doing. That wasn't heard of. Like, oh, I just love food and talking to people all around the world. And as a result of following that passion and being interested in other people and education, it was everything tied together. Even though that didn't exist and he carved out that niche, as a result of him doing that, you're referencing him and it's inspired you. I just want to say that while we almost have this, in order for us to enjoy our lives, we have to understand, like, turn off all of the noise and really be introspective and pay attention to what we enjoy, not what we're being fed, but what we actively like. And that there is, I'm going to take it a step further, I think even a moral responsibility to do that, because then somebody else is going to come along. They're going to see what's possible because you carved out that niche that's visible. So it's not only for your own life, but it's also to hold up a possibility for others so that they can dream big.
They can do that by finding your X factor.
Yes.
Paul, it's not step just, well, how do I do that? It's step one. They have to,
It's a great book, Paul.
Hey, Rudy, thank you for your chapter. Rudy is one of America's top attorneys that works in transportation financing for big capital infrastructure projects and is recognized across America for that. And then he talks about all of his interests and how they came together. And he's become what I really believe in, which is an integrated person, where your life integrates what you believe. So you're not fighting against yourself. You're not fighting against your inner mores. You're in sync with them. And that creates what the Greeks call dunamos power, the dynamite power that comes from living a fully integrated life. It is fantastic. And that's when you'll make real impact in whatever industry you're in, is when you're living an integrated life. And I think Rudy's one that does it.
Amen, man. What a way to wrap it up with some Greek. It's not Greek to me. When I talk to intelligent people, this is not Greek. It's not Greek. This is fantastic.
Good is in the Details is produced by Dr. Gwendolyn, Dolske, and Rudy, Salo. If this episode or any of our other episodes have kept you thinking more about philosophy, tell a friend, share the episode, rate us, and be sure to visit us on Patreon, where you can get more resources for philosophy, deepen your understanding, and we've got a book club. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, Good is in the Details Pod. Be sure to check out the show notes so that you can get your copy of Interview with Intention. Okay, until next time, bye.